And good evening, everybody. Chief Meteorologist Joe Fitzwater. We are interrupting your broadcast. We have a tornado warning that has been posted for portions of our region. This is for western parts of Fayette County. This is a thunderstorm that is rotating significantly, folks. So if you know anybody that is in western Fayette County, this is not quite to the Route 19 corridor. This is farther back to the west. So this includes out toward Boomer and Alloy and just to the west of Ansted, back out toward Golly Bridge, for example. This thunderstorm is ripping. Let's put this into motion here, and you can actually almost see this thing spinning like a top as it continues to scoot down and to the east out of Kanawha County. It's in Kanawha County right now, but is about to push into Fayette County. And by all means here, as far as what we're able to look at on radar, this is a supercell thunderstorm that certainly could be spitting out a tornado here as this continues to scoot off to the east. This storm's been rotating for quite some time. We've been watching it closely here in the Storm Tracker 59 Weather Lab, but it's right in this area, and we'll zoom in just a bit. I won't get too close here, but as we zoom in near the Esdale area there in southern parts of Kanawha County, this is the area of concern. You can kind of see the curvature of this supercell. Of course, lots of lightning being associated with this storm as well. We've got to push this off to my left here so that you can see as this will continue to scoot off to the east. So again, if you're in western parts of Fayette County, this is the time to go ahead and get into that safe spot, right? So if you have a basement, that's the place to go. That's the safest place you could go. You're underground. Hopefully you don't have too much in the way of windows. If you're somebody like me that does not have a basement, you want to get as many walls and as little amount of windows as you can near you, right? So if you're in a home with no basement, again, getting into the middle of that home, preferably with no windows, maybe a closet or a bathroom, something like that would certainly help provide the most protection. Let's take a look at the velocity product here so that we can see where the rotation is. And here it is. It's right in here, so just to the east of the Whitaker area. Now, I will say, with this storm in its proximity to the Charleston radar, you can't see the rotation overly well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to the Blacksburg radar, and let's see what we can see. Still pretty noisy data that's showing up, but that rotation is right in here across southern parts of Kanawha County, and that's going to continue to push its way off to the east. So what I'll do is I'll zoom back out here just for a moment, and as we do that, you'll be able to see this rotation a little bit better as we kind of put this into motion just for a bit, putting that velocity back on. And again, notice right there, that is the signature that we are watching very carefully here across Kanawha County, again, pushing into Fayette County momentarily. So there's Mahan, again, in the tornado warning. If you're up toward Alloy, in the tornado warning. That includes the Robson area and farther off to the east, right about to the Cotton Hill area. That's about where the cutoff is. So Chimney Corner is in this tornado warning. Golly Bridge is in this tornado warning. But the area of particular concern is right in here, now just to the south and east of the Esdale area. You can kind of see how the storm is pivoting a bit. So let's switch back over here for a moment and put the radar back up so that we get a better look at where that storm is. So there is that curvature. At least for the moment, it appears that this storm is broadened out for a bit, but this severe thunderstorm warning does, this tornado warning does continue for a good 20 minutes or so. The interesting thing of note, notice how these showers and storms, this is the wind energy that we're talking about. We have wind in some different levels of our atmosphere moving in completely different directions than at the surface, and that is what we've been talking about here this evening when we've been folks been asking about, well, is the rain going to help out with the severe weather threat? It certainly helps a little bit, but when you have so much wind energy present in the atmosphere, sometimes it just doesn't matter. And so this storm likely is going to re-strengthen here momentarily as it does cut into portions of western Fayette County. So again, this is going to be continuing to scoot down to the south and east. So this is really going to be closer to the, let's say, the 612 corridor, probably, more so than farther up to the north toward Golly Bridge. This is kind of digging itself and kind of has that southeasterly trek to it here momentarily as it continues to strengthen. And you can usually get a general idea of some of the strengthening characteristics within these storms by the amount of lightning strikes. Notice that we're seeing a ton of lightning with this storm out ahead of it. And so that likely indicates that this thunderstorm is not yet done as far as its cycle is concerned. So again, a tornado warning, that's for the red areas. I'm going to pause this just for a second so that we can kind of differentiate which areas are in this tornado warning and which areas are not. We do not have a confirmed tornado with this storm yet. We'll see if that changes, of course, with any information that's presented to us. But if you're in Fayetteville, I would be watching this storm closely, but you're not in the warning yet. However, if this storm can hold together over the next half hour to 45 minutes, this storm would be working its way into that area. So we'll have to watch that closely between Fayetteville and Oak Hill. Oak Hill is right here, so not in the warning officially, but it's pretty doggone close, right? That storm is just to your west and is going to continue to kind of work toward this corridor along Route 19 here in about a half hour to 40 minutes. And this tornado warning kind of extends all the way down to near Pax and kind of down to the corner there at Mount Hope. So this southwestern corner of Fayette County, including up into northwestern portions of Fayette County toward Boomer and toward Alloy and Smithers, farther back to the west toward Montgomery. Those are some areas, for example, farther back up to the north that are also involved in this tornado warning. So this continues for a good 20 minutes or so. This expires at about 8:45. Let's put the animation back up here for just a moment. And again, there is this area of concern, which right now is just to the north and west of the Mahan area. And we're going to be switching back and forth here with the velocity to kind of see if there's any signs of this thing showing any weakening or strengthening characteristics. And yes, still seeing some rotation here. It's kind of a noisy product that we're looking at here. Trying to see some of the storm relative velocities here and still having a hard time. Let's look at the correlation coefficient product. That is something that we'll have to watch, but what we call side lobe contamination. So basically the storm is kind of contaminating the data that is coming in to a certain degree. But with this being said, this also indicates that we have some very strong winds that are working into this storm. That usually is a sign that the storm is not done strengthening yet. So we can look at our triple threat, the Barron triple threat, indicating the potential in that white of some pretty large hail also coming out of Kanawha County and moving into western portions of Fayette County. So this is about to exit Kanawha County completely here over the next few minutes, and then we'll start to see that switch over into Fayette County here momentarily. The rotation tracker, this is the swath product, and again, not showing quite as much as it pushes its way into the Fayette County area. So that is a good sight to see at least. But again, for now, this storm continuing to show signs of rotation. And again, if you are watching in western Fayette County, this would be the time to go ahead and get in the shelter. You've still got time to do so before the storm works its way in. It's raining cats and dogs up toward Alloy and Golly Bridge. And yes, these areas are in the tornado warning, but they're not in the immediate concern. That's going to be farther down to the south toward the Kincaid area, for example, and down toward Mahan, and eventually out toward Beards Fork and Robson. And if this can hold together, would be up toward the Route 19, Route 16 quarters there, about toward Beckwith. So there is that kind of that indention, this area of concern here near the small community of Burnwell, working its way off to the east. And so this storm continuing to move rather quickly, at least, so we're not having to worry about the risk for heavy rainfall. And again, this has been part of a setup that has been quite volatile all afternoon. If we could we could switch over to Links 2 here for a moment and switch feeds for a second. We'll take a look at the overall picture, and that is this cold front that continues to approach. So once the front is through, we're going to be in good shape here. We're not going to have to worry about severe weather after the front crosses, but it's still going to be a few hours before that takes place. And so until that happens, even though we've had the rain showers throughout much of this evening here in our region, even though we've had a lot of clouds, the wind energy is so impressive in our region here this evening that it's not taking much to get these storms going. A great reference that I like to think of analog events when we start talking about severe weather. A great analog event was a few weeks ago. If you guys remember, we had quite a bit of damaging wind gusts that was taking place at like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm not sure if you guys remember that, but this was probably about 6 weeks or so ago. There was very little instability present. There was so much wind energy that those storms just continued to rip. We had a lot of power outages as a result, and these storms are kind of interacting in the same manner here this evening. So again, that higher risk for severe weather has certainly been taking place this afternoon and evening across northern parts of West Virginia, central parts of West Virginia. Likely also some catastrophic flooding that has taken place up toward Upshur County, for example. It's been a lower threat for severe weather across our southern half of our counties, but farther up to the north, that's where we've been expecting that severe weather, and that's where we've certainly been seeing it here today. And we don't see enhanced risk issued that often here in our region. It's something that doesn't really occur but about 2 to 3 times a year. So we look at the tornado threat. That 5% shade did get expanded a little farther south to include Beckley and Oak Hill, so that's a 5% chance of seeing a tornado within 25 miles of a point. So I like to use Beckley as an example. If you live in Beckley, you have a 5% chance of seeing a tornado within 25 miles of you. But the highest threat that we've had here today has been that threat for damaging wind gusts, which is very high, especially the farther up to the north, which again has certainly taken place here this afternoon. The hail threat is on the low side, but that thunderstorm that is tornado warned that we'll get back to here in just a moment has certainly shown some signs of at least having some small hail associated with it. So we look at Predictor and we continue through this evening, and there are those showers and thunderstorms here at 8 o'clock, pushing into 8:30, scooting down and continuing here as we head toward 9, 10 o'clock. Perhaps a few more scattered showers and thunderstorms before it's all said and done here. About midnight or so, we'll start to really see those improvements taking place. Those showers are going to be tough to break here initially during the morning hours. Likely some periods of drizzle here as we head into our Wednesday morning. And then as we head toward the afternoon, we'll start to see some sunshine taking place here across the region, which will certainly, I think, be welcomed by most. And perhaps the bigger story here as we head toward the end of the week is going to be those temperatures that are going to be dropping down into the 70s with overnight lows in the 50s. So that's kind of a look at the forecast. Let's switch back over to Lynx 1 if we could, Bree. Let's get the latest on this tornado warning. This storm, at least at the moment, looking a little bit on the messier side. So hand tracker's been a little bit contrary with me trying to draw here in recent times. Yeah, it's not even wanting me to draw here at this point. But again, there's the area of concern, which is right over the Mahan area at this point. So western portions of Fayette County. And so that is the area that we are of most concern with the potential for a tornado to take place. Again, to emphasize, we don't have any reported confirmations of a tornado or anything on the ground. But the radar presentation here is certainly impressive enough to where we could have something on the ground here in that area. So again, that is the concern as we work our way over the next few minutes in western portions of Fayette County. And so again, it's really this area in here that we are concerned about. That's the area of rotation. Farther up to the north, you see those heavy rainfall amounts taking place there in central portions of Fayette County toward Beards Fork. That extends out toward Beckwith. Those are areas that are not having to concern themselves with the threat for tornadoes. It's just heavy rainfall that's occurring, perhaps even some small hail that might be mixing in with that, but not having to worry about a tornado in those spots. It's really this particular spot that we're keeping a close eye on. Let's take a look once again, and that area of rotation now starting to scoot to the east here just a bit. So let me erase my markings there for a moment. And so now that area of rotation is looking broader as it scoots into Fayette County, but it's still showing some signs of rotation there in western parts of Fayette County. So this is the area of the rotation. You see the bright green. When we look at a velocity map like this, the red areas indicates particles that are being detected by the radar that's moving away from the radar. So in this case, we're talking about moving away from the Charleston radar. So the Charleston radar is back up this way. Meanwhile, the green indicates particles that are moving toward the radar. So you've got two areas here where the air is converging, and that's now over toward getting toward the Hamilton area. So that is usually where we have the areas of rotation to be concerned about. So that's what we're looking at here in Fayette County. What I am going to do here for a moment, let's zoom out just for a bit and see if we have any other thunderstorms that are causing any issues here at this hour. If I can get that to pop up. I tell you what, sometimes Hand Tracker gives me the hardest time. But there's the wider perspective that we're looking at. I'm going to switch the radar back up and show the radar presentation. We do have some pretty impressive downpours now across portions of Greenbrier County. And briefly, some of these were trying to get a little more organized across parts of Greenbrier County up toward Frankfort and out toward Falling Spring. We'll put these into motion here for a bit. And these storms continuing kind of training over the same area. So there is some heavy rainfall that is occurring. But thankfully, nothing that's looking strong, too severe, or showing any types of rotation at this hour in Greenbrier County. So really the only thunderstorm that we're having to be concerned about now is the one that's farther back to the west. And it is this guy right in here that continues to show that signature hook echo there across western parts of Fayette County. So again, Oak Hill, you're not in the tornado warning just yet. It's right on your doorstep. Fayetteville, also not in the tornado warning. The severe thunderstorm warning component of this storm, though, has been extended out. So that does include Oak Hill and does include the Fayetteville area. Also includes Ansted. So we'll see if the tornado warning portion of this gets extended. That is set to expire at 8:45. So that's ultimately going to be determined by whether this rotation does persist with the supercell thunderstorm, again, that is located right there in western parts of Fayette County, kind of following the turnpike. I kind of wish I'd be driving the turnpike. If you're heading north on the turnpike, you probably get a pretty good view of this thing. What is that, cutting up through about Pax or so at the Pax toll booth? That's probably quite the sight. I don't recommend doing that, but passengers that might be driving right now would probably get a pretty good view of the supercell storm. I wish we had a camera that was up that way that we'd be able to view this. But again, quite the storm structure that we're looking at. So again, for those that might not know, this is kind of the entire storm that we're looking at, and it's that curved section of the storm right in here where we see the potential for the tornado, and that is continuing to slide to the east. So this was showing some signs of some strong rotation about 5 to 10 minutes ago. Not quite as strong of a signature that we're looking at here at the moment, but still showing some signs of rotation. Let's zoom back in on this, and as we do so, you will see the area of greatest concern here in the short term is right near Kincaid, just to the west of Bays Heights. That's kind of getting out toward Fayetteville. That's still a fair ways away, but it's right in this area. But the good thing is, at least with the last couple of scans, there's still a little bit of rotation showing up here. So we're going to have to continue to monitor this. And again, when we talk about looking at these areas of rotation, we're looking at the wind where it is moving toward the radar, which is here, and then moving away from the radar, which is here. So the area of rotation is right in here that we have to be concerned with, and this is continuing to scoot to the east. So honestly, the National Weather Service is going to have a real question to answer quickly here over the next few minutes, and that is whether they extend this tornado warning out to include Oak Hill and Fayetteville or not, or whether they've seen enough evidence of this structure within the supercell weakening enough to where it can just be a severe thunderstorm warning. But regardless, this storm continues to race to the east rather quickly, so they're going to have to figure that out rather quickly. Well, of course, we're going to stay on air until they make that decision. So again, the rotation right here, we pop the radar back up, and so that, of course, coordinates with the indention in this thunderstorm. Now, I will tell you, as someone who has covered quite a few tornado warnings at this point, this storm in general is starting to look a little disorganized. That's not to say that it can't recycle and re-strengthen, but at least at this point, this storm is starting to lose some of its structure that really shows that indication that there's some strong rotation occurring within the supercell itself. There's still some weak rotation that is occurring, but it doesn't look as impressive nearly as it did about 10, 15 minutes ago when we hopped on here. That is for sure. And the backside of this, thankfully, has been allowed to expire. So this is essentially just for Fayette County, western portions of Fayette County here at this point. Again, if you're in Oak Hill and Fayetteville, it's a close call, but not seeing anything as far as that tornado warning extension yet. Now, that is an interesting signature. Now notice that we're starting to try to see another wrap, so we may see some strengthening occurring once again. So when we talk about the wrapping, this is what we're looking at here. When you start seeing that storm showing that curvature, that's when we're starting to see the rotation returning with this storm. So we go back to the rotation once again, the velocity product. This is looking broader, at least at the moment, but we certainly could see more rotation occurring here over the next couple of minutes. And so again, at least at this point, that rotation is down to the south and east of the Kincaid area, mainly looking at heavy rainfall and lightning farther up to the north of that. So if you're watching this in Golly Bridge, you're fine as far as the tornado warning is concerned. That warning is really for areas farther down to the south, kind of due west of Oak Hill and Fayetteville. And if I were in those spots, I would probably go ahead and get into my safe spot just as an insurance policy at this point, because the storm is getting pretty close by for sure. And again, it's within about 5 miles or so, kind of traveling, kind of traversing right along 612 there. That's where this storm is really the closest. So of course, you've got the railroad, you've got Tony Fork right here. I've actually done a lot of running out there on Tony Fork. So shout out to a buddy of mine, Wes McDonald, for letting me run out that way. But again, those scattered storms that we saw earlier today, those have been replaced in some regards with the severe weather. And again, this area, this curvature, that is of greatest concern. So again, when we say getting into that safe spot, we want to get downstairs, right? We want to preferably be underground. If you've got a basement, that works fantastic. I go to a lot of school visits, right? And I actually have one tomorrow, which I'm pretty excited about. And I don't have a basement. So I always ask the kids, where do you go if you don't have a basement? You go into a place where there are not very many windows and there are as many walls between you and outside as possible. So that's what I would be doing if I was in this tornado warning here at this point. But again, to emphasize, if you have been flipping the channel and you just now flip back, this tornado warning is for western parts of Fayette County. We've got about another 8 minutes or so with this. And it has been showing a lot of signs of rotation on and off here. This has been kind of a hit and miss rotation-esque storm here. So we've had some instances where the rotation kind of wraps and sucks back up into the storm, but then other moments where the rotation kind of deepens. So that's why we've been going back and forth, kind of taking a look. Yeah, this is a problem. So this is, we may get an extension on this here momentarily. We're going to continue to stay on here, of course, until this tornado warning is allowed to expire. But there are some indications here that we may be seeing some regeneration of this area of rotation, which is now getting awfully close to the Oak Hill and Fayetteville corridors. So Route 19, of course, kind of meandering right in here. So you've got Oak Hill, you've got Scarborough. This storm is kind of right on your doorstep within about 5 minutes or so of crossing the Route 19 corridor, which would then continue east into the central and eastern portions of the county. So again, no tornado warning yet for Fayetteville and Oak Hill. We're going to watch that closely, though, because that is a pretty stout-looking signature that we do have going on here at the moment. While we do that, we will go back and take a look at what's going on as far as that setup. So again, the setup has been a volatile one. If we could switch back over to links 2, that'd be great, Bree. And shout out to all our producers and directors that make being able to do this possible. So we've got quite a few of them that really work very hard here at the station that make this stuff possible. So as always, I want to give a shout out to them for working extra hard to be able to give us the opportunity to provide this hopefully helpful information to you guys. We have this front that's back to our west, and there's been a lot of wind energy associated with this. Why are we seeing so much wind energy? It's because of the upper levels in the atmosphere. We have a very strong trough that's in place across the eastern U.S., and that interaction creates a lot of different changes in both wind direction and speed with height. That creates wind shear. And I always think about this as like giving a child a big old candy bar, right? It kind of revs them up, right? Gets them real excited. That's what these storms like when they see wind shear, and they kind of gravitate toward those storms with wind shear as well. So we've been seeing that here this afternoon. And that's why, again, we've been emphasizing that just because you've seen rain showers. Just because you've seen clouds throughout the day doesn't mean that the risk for severe weather is over. And again, we have a level 2 risk for severe weather in our southern counties. Level 3 risk, it's been the higher risk farther up to the north here today. So that's why we have been emphasizing the threats here with today's storms, because we don't see enhanced risk for severe weather that often issued by the Storm Prediction Center in our region. Usually we see level 2 risk or level 1 or nothing at all, right? I'm trying to think. I think maybe, so I've been doing weather on air for about 10 years now, and I think we've had maybe 2 moderate risk in this area since then. We've had a few enhanced. We usually see a couple of those per year. So we do see them from time to time, but they're usually accompanied by pretty volatile setups, no differently than what we've seen today. And we have not had, as far as I know, we have not had a confirmed tornado in West Virginia today. However, there has been numerous reports of damage up across northern parts of West Virginia where there were tornado-warned storms. So I would anticipate the National Weather Service is going to be very busy conducting some storm surveys, and I do think we'll have some confirmed tornadoes when it's all said and done that'll be kind of documented and published and released here over the next couple of days. Let's go back to Links 1 if we can now, Bree. Let's look at the latest on what we've got going on. And again, there is that area of rotation. So no new changes as far as the warnings are concerned. So we're happy to report that. The tornado warning continues until 8:45. There is the area in question, which is just north of Dothan there across 612. So 612 kind of meandering right here, like so. So one thing that I always like to use to remind myself of some of these numbers, right? The north-south numbers are usually ending in odd numbers. The west-east roadways usually end in even numbers, right? So that's how 612. And look at that. The tornado warning looks like it has been allowed to expire. So that's certainly some good news. Let's take a look at the velocity product real quickly. Still seeing some signs of rotation. So what we're going to do is we're going to return back to your regularly scheduled broadcast. However, if a new tornado warning is issued, we will be sure to cut right back in. So again, the job here is just to make sure that we're keeping you safe and letting you know what's going on across our region. But right now, the tornado warning has been allowed to expire. So with that being said, we're going to return to your normally scheduled broadcast. I'm Chief Meteorologist Joe Fitzwater with the Storm Tracker 59 team. Thank you for being patient with us. Hopefully this information has been helpful for you. And we now return back to your normally scheduled broadcast. Alrighty, good evening once again, folks. Chief Meteorologist Joe Fitzwater. It's 9:01. We have a new tornado warning that has been issued now for that same storm that we were tracking earlier. So the good news for folks along Route 19 from Fayetteville to Oak Hill, honest to goodness, probably should have been in the tornado warning to start with, but that storm has now scooted off to your east. And so now we're looking at portions of eastern Fayette County. So this includes over toward Babcock State Park, over toward Clifftop and Landisburg, down toward Denise, in Meadowbridge. This is a thunderstorm that has had a history of producing a lot of rotation on radar. We do not have, again, anything that is confirmed by the National Weather Service as far as any storm reports or anything on the ground. But this storm, once again, has shown a lot of signs of rotation. So what we can do is kind of switch back and forth like we were. Of course, the area of rotation at this point is where you see kind of that appendage, which is just down to the south and west of the Clifftop area. Let's put the velocity product back up, and there's the area of interest. So let's zoom in here and look at this a little bit closer, just to the west of Clifftop. So kind of broad-looking rotation here at the moment, here with our in-house product. But again, this is the rotation that we are looking at. So this is just to the east of the Sewell area. Of course, these are a lot of ghost town areas there along the New River, out down toward Caperton. You know, I went and I got to do a little bit of rafting a couple of weeks ago, and my raft guide, who is a good friend of mine, Bryant Baker, was telling me about some of the ghost towns as we were kind of traversing the river, including out toward Caperton. So kind of a neat spot. But right now, not a neat spot, because that's the area that's seeing some of the rotation that's taking place as this scoots off to the east. So let's take that off for a second and slide this over to our left. Babcock State Park, pretty close by here. There's Old Sewell Road, so if you ever run the Gristmill Grinder race there at Babcock State Park and you make a wrong turn, you end up on Old Sewell Road. And so, again, we're kind of encroaching on the park itself at this moment as this storm continues to push to the east. So, again, it's the areas of green and red that are close together where we start talking about that concern for perhaps a tornado on the ground. This does not look as impressive as what we had in the last cut-in when we were talking earlier. That was a pretty impressive signature that we had there for a bit. This is looking a little bit more broad, but let's put the radar back up. And again, the area of rotation slightly farther down to the south. This is the area that we're most concerned with here, which is going to be down toward Bury Mountain. So Bury Mountain, of course, right here, kind of going down toward Chestnut Knob. If you're out toward Maplewood and Dane East, that's right in here. That's getting pretty close. Again, this is one of those situations where if you're down in these areas, from Dane East to the small little community of Pittman, up to Landisburg at Babcock State Park, up to Clifftop, this is where we want to get into our safe spots because this is a storm that has shown a lot of signs of rotating on and off. It's kind of been an intermittent rotation that we've been looking at here over the last hour or so. This storm really kind of got itself together in northeastern parts of Boone County around 7:30, 8 o'clock, traversed through southern parts of Kanawha County, and we're talking about areas south of Charleston, so down toward Cabin Creek, for example, and Dakota and Carbon and places like that, down toward Esdale and Caseford, and now has scooted farther to the east into Fayette County and continues to scoot into Fayette County. Now, I will say, let's zoom out just for a bit. This storm showing a little less in the way of organization at the moment, but it has shown the ability to re-strengthen itself. So we zoom back in here just for a moment, and this storm is right here. And notice how, as the storm has scooted off to the east, it kind of absorbs into itself, then kind of rehooks, right? We call this cycling. Now, the interesting thing is there is a second supercell now that is trying to get its act together south and west of Anstead. We're going to have to watch that closely because that's showing a pretty decent little signature in and of itself here across parts of western Fayette County. So essentially we have two different supercells in Fayette County at the moment. Now the one that is tornado warned obviously is the stronger one, but you can see, you don't need me to tell you, there is quite a bit of strengthening that has occurred. A lot more organization with this storm that is now pushing into the Anstead area here momentarily, working its way out of eastern portions of Kanawha County back toward Cedar Grove and Pratt, for example. So that one is headed toward Anstead and would eventually be up toward, let's say, the Hyco area where Route 60 and Route 19 cross, scooting off into the east. These supercells kind of paralleling each other here at this point. But the tornado warning is right there. Let's pause this once again. And again, this is the area of concern that we're looking at until 9:45. This is just west of the small community of Pittman. So if you're in Raynell, this is getting close enough to where I would definitely be keeping a close eye on it, but go ahead and be thinking about where you should go in case this storm does maintain its strength as it pushes into Greenbrier County. So getting into that spot that's going to keep you safest in your home because, again, this storm has continued to show signs of rotation. Let's zoom back in here for a moment. So this is sitting almost right over Landisburg at this juncture. So that's Route 41, I believe, that scoots up from south to north and in through Dane East and then up into Landisburg. So again, Meadowbridge is down here. Listen, if I'm in Meadowbridge, I'm getting in my safe spot, but you're going to be okay here. This is going to stay up to your north. The real areas of concern is near Dane East and up toward Landisburg and about as far north as Clifftop. Kind of this section in here, that's the area of concern here for the short term. And yeah, this is looking a lot broader, so this is a good look here for now. But we could still see some cycling taking place with this as it continues to scoot off to the east. So there's that storm. Let's look at that other storm farther up to the north. And thankfully, we're not seeing anything that is too organized with that particular storm. But again, that is another storm that has been showing some signs of strengthening here across western portions of Fayette County, kind of in the shadow, if you will, of the other storm that is tornado warned right now. So again, two different storms that we're talking about, but only one of them at this point is severe. And again, that is for this storm, which is just to the north of Dane East. It's actually kind of lifting back up to the north here temporarily And so that, again, if it were to continue to hold its strength, would put it probably right near Raynell and Charmco here in about 20 minutes or so. So these storms have been racing their way through. Again, this tornado warning goes until 9:45. This tornado warning, or this, I should say, this tornado warned storm is going to be long out of this warning by 9:45. So we'll be able to definitely, if it doesn't show any other signs of rotation, we'll be able to return to your scheduled broadcast here way before then. But at least in the short term, we still have some signs of rotation taking place. And again, kind of switching back and forth between the reflectivity and the velocity. That's a little bit of a tighter product that we've got there that we're looking at. So still seeing that rotation. That is right over Landisburg there along Route 41. So this is getting awfully close. Now just to the east of Babcock State Park, because if you remember, when you're driving up Route 41, if you're going north, you got to turn left to get to the park. So Babcock would be about right in here. So it's now on the better side of the storm, so to speak. But this storm going to continue to scoot to the east. Charmco and Raynell are right here. And then, of course, a little farther to the east, you've got Rupert. And then Angine, which is farther up to the north and east. All of these areas, I would be keeping a close eye on this storm here over the next 20 to 30 minutes and seeing the characteristics, if it can hold itself together between now and then. It's had no issues through Boone County. It's had no issues through Kanawha County. And it really hasn't had any issues in Fayette County either. It has cycled a couple of times and weakened temporarily, but then just immediately has re-strengthened, and that's why we're cutting back in to the broadcast here at this juncture. But again, tornado warning until 9:45. Let us, if we can, Bree, let's switch back over to Links 2 here for a bit. Let's talk about the setup. Again, kind of reiterating some of our thoughts here from a little earlier this evening. We have had rain showers, what we call stratiform precipitation, for the last several hours. And a lot of folks think that when we see these showers, it gets rid of the severe weather threat. And 7, 8 out of 10 times you would be correct, right? When we see the rain showers take place, it kind of takes all the zap out of the energy, right? It takes all the juice out of the atmosphere. The problem, though, is that there's so much wind energy that is in our atmosphere today, it just doesn't really take much to get these storms whipped right back up, right? So it doesn't take a whole lot. Now, the Storm Prediction Center, of course, with the advent of the sunset taking place, has lowered the risk overall area-wide. So we have now dropped to a level 2 risk across southern West Virginia. That's literally just dropped down within the last 5 minutes. They usually update about 9 o'clock every evening. So level 2 risk still taking place. So a couple of strong to severe storms can be expected. And as a result, they update all their graphics. So the tornado threat now is at 2% instead of the 5% that we had with the last cut-in, because, again, they update everything at 9 o'clock. So what does this mean? If you're in Oak Hill, you have a 2% risk of seeing a tornado within 25 miles of you, right? So that's not that high when you think about it, but it's not something we see that often here in our region. Damaging wind gust threat has dropped to 10%, so we've seen a big drop there. And the hail threat is pretty much done with, which I think is a good call here. I don't think we're going to have to worry about that a whole lot here as we head into the evening hours. We look at predictor. We've got about another hour or so of these thunderstorms being strong to severe where they are right now. We could see more development taking place, but this looks a lot more linear in nature than what we're looking at currently. So that would mean that we're looking at less in the way of the risk for supercells and more the way of the risk for just some gusty winds that we'd be looking at. That will continue until about 11 or 12, and then we'll start to see some breaks taking place here as we head into the morning hours of our Wednesday. We'll have some showers around in the morning, but as we head into the afternoon, we'll start to see some improvements taking place. And from there, the weather is really going to be turning nice. We've just got to get through tonight, and then we'll start to see a lot of improvements taking place here in our region. And again, the sunshine looking rather nice here as we head toward Wednesday afternoon. Temperatures will be in the mid-70s. Let's talk about tornado safety here for just a moment, just to make sure we all know this, right? If you've got a basement, head on downstairs when you're under a tornado warning. That's the best place to go because you are going to be protected by the ground and you don't have the windows that might bust out. If you're somebody like me, head to the area in your house that's got the most walls and the least amount of windows. So for a lot of folks, that might be a bathroom, it might be a closet, something like that, that you're not going to have to deal with much in the way of any windows. And that will certainly help keep you and your family safe when we do have situations like this where the potential for severe weather is on the table, and that is what we're looking at. Power outages right now, we do have 1,000 customers right now without power in Fayette County. Now, when we look at this, it's one thing to look at the number, right? But 1,000 customers without power in Fayette County is a lot different than saying 1,000 customers in Monroe County is without power. So we can look at this more from a percentage standpoint. So, for example, 5% of people in Fayette County right now are without power. That comes out to about 1 out of 20 people that are without power. So what the heck are we talking about when we're talking about wind shear? That's really the name of the game here today. It's the change in wind direction between the surface and the upper levels. On top of that, the wind in the upper levels is very strong here this afternoon. That is what's creating this natural rotation in the atmosphere. That creates horizontal rotation, right? And we've seen a lot of this today. But the thing is, you get a thunderstorm that develops, no different than the one that's been in Fayette County, and it is able to utilize this horizontal rotation and flip it. And so it flips it vertically, and then that's when we start to see the potential for a tornado to form. This has been the threat that we've been looking at here this afternoon. If it's not a tornado, it's a risk for damaging wind gusts that we look at. Damaging wind gusts have by far been the primary threat we've been looking at, but the threat for tornadoes has also been something that has been non-zero here for today. Bree, if we could, let's go ahead and switch back over to Links 1. Let's look at the latest on what's going on. And there is our storm. So, some updates here. First, let's go back to the radar. And as we do so, if I can get this thing to work, sometimes this thing really does like to give me a hard time. There we go. So, a couple things to notice here. We kind of have this appendage once again. So, we're going to have to watch to see if this tries to cycle itself as it scoots to the east here. This tornado warning ends at the Fayette County line with Greenbrier County. It ends right here, kind of that little jagged thing. We've got about, maybe 5 to 10 minutes where this is going to be in the tornado warning. Now, the National Weather Service is different in Greenbrier County. So the National Weather Service in Charleston issues this tornado warning. They cover Fayette County. The National Weather Service in Blacksburg issues for Greenbrier County. So they have issued a severe thunderstorm warning. At this point, they have not issued a tornado warning. So still, if you're in Rupert, if you're in Raynell, I would be getting into your safe spot just to play it safe. But as of now, we have a very small sliver of Fayette County that is currently in a tornado warning. So if this scoots off to the east, that tornado warning will then be allowed to expire if we don't see further strengthening taking place. But what I'll do, we're just going to kind of go back and forth and look at the rotation. At this point, this is not looking overly impressive. So this is a great sign that we're starting to experience some weakening of rotation taking place here at eastern portions of Fayette County. I still would be buckled down and making sure that I'm safe, but at least the imminent threat of a tornado appears to be pretty low with this, at least at this juncture. Again, the cycling of these storms occurs very quickly, and that's what we have to be careful of, and that's what we were talking about there at the end of the last cut-in, and now talking about this once again. So we kind of see this thing weaken and cycle, but notice there's what we call, basically in weather world, we call this a BWER, a bounded weak echo region. There's an echo, there's kind of an indentation here in this supercell where there's not really anything showing up here, and that is some sign that we're trying to get more rapids going on with this storm once again north of Denise. So still not completely out of the woods yet with this system as it continues to scoot off to the east. And that is, it's kind of moving due east at this point. So this would scoot toward Raynell and Rupert here momentarily over the next, probably in Raynell in the next 5 to 8 minutes or so. Farther up to the north and west, though, we still have to keep an eye on this little guy who is also trying to rotate. Let's take a look at this. West of Fayetteville. Thankfully, not seeing much in the way of any rotation with that. And so that's certainly not a bad thing, but still have that storm to contend with as well. We'll put the radar as far as what we're seeing with the precipitation here at this point with this storm that's just north of Fayetteville. Probably some very dark clouds up to the north of Fayetteville. This is going to kind of slide its way down to the south and east into the greater Fayetteville area over the next couple of minutes. And this is also an area that's under a flash flood warning, and I want to switch gears and talk about that here for just a moment. So let's pause this and take a look at some of these rainfall totals that we've had over the last few hours. So the last 3 hours, we have had some pretty impressive totals. So where you see the yellows, that's where we're talking about 2+ inches of rain. And that includes portions of Kanawha County, and that goes farther to the east into parts of Fayette County. So we've picked up 2 inches of rain, for example, estimated in the Robson area. And that dark green that does include the Fayetteville area, we're talking about 1.5 inches to 2 inches of rain that we've seen over the last 3 hours. The problem is, on top of this, we have more rain that's moving in. Oops. There we go. Oh man, this thing is really, there we go. Sometimes, you know, it's like if you do some exercise, you just start feeling tired, you don't do as well. That's pretty much how Hand Tracker works. But notice we do have storms that are moving back into the Fayetteville area. So that's the concern with that. We could still have some flooding issues before this is all said and done in portions of central Fayette County here before these storms have a chance to exit. Let's go back to the east. Take a look. Oh, we have a new tornado warning that has been issued. So a new tornado warning has now been issued for western portions of Greenbrier County. This goes also until 9:45. So we're going to stay on here for a bit. National Weather Service folks see this wrapping taking place with this storm. So we're going to continue to track this for you. And again, you can see the appendage that is the area of concern here. So we put my Bob Ross drawing here, kind of something like that, right? That's the rotation that we're looking at here that's now to the east of Landisburg. So if you're watching in Clifftop, you're in the clear. If you're watching in Landisburg, you're in the clear. If you're watching in Dane East, you're in the clear. But farther to the east, that is not the case. So Rainelle, you're kind of the next folks that are going to be impacted by this storm. So this is where I would definitely be getting into my safe spot if I'm in Charmco, if I'm in Rainelle, if I'm in Rupert. So this extends into western portions of Greenbrier County. This does not include Lewisburg. This does not include White Sulphur Springs. This does not include those portions of Greenbrier County. This is for western parts of Greenbrier County, kind of adjacent to Fayette County. So what we'll probably need to do here, and I'm going to take a look, because keep in mind, I'm examining this data with you literally as it's happening, right? I haven't had a chance to look at this. This data is coming from the Charleston radar. Let's see what it looks like. We may have to switch to the Blacksburg radar. So yeah, there is definitely a little area of interest there. Let's take my drawing off there for a moment and kind of zoom in. That would be right over the north side of Rainelle. I also want to look from the Blacksburg radar, though. Let's see what we've got there. I think that's a better representation of what we're looking at here. So this is the area of concern to the west of Rainelle. Again, keep in mind that when we look at a thunderstorm on radar, the presentation is going to look a little different from each different radar. It has a different perspective, a different direction that is scanning out to the storm, right? So the Blacksburg radar, in this case, probably the better presentation because it's a little bit closer and has more of a direct look, right? Kind of the type of direction, the type of magnitude that we want to be able to see this storm from. So we see the green now moving toward the radar. We see the red moving away from the radar. So this is the area where we see the rotation, where we see the green and the red coming together. That's how we analyze velocity and determine the potential for a tornado to be on the ground. We look at the actual radar product. Man, I'm going to have to reset this soon. Yeah, so still a little bit of an appendage here, but it's not looking as impressive as it did a while back. So let's put this back into motion, and you can see this. And this is kind of scooting its way. It kind of looks like, to me, it's weakening as it scoots to the east. So again, this is going to continue until 9:45. This new tornado warning that, again, includes western portions of Greenbrier County. But we are seeing signs of this weakening. And also, I think this storm is still going to be out of here before 9:45. This storm is absolutely cooking. It is flying right now, probably moving east at about 40 miles per hour or so. So just in the midst of talking, basically all of Fayette County is in the clear at this point. So one thing, if you are watching this or if you know somebody that lives in these areas and they happen to have some damage, please have them send us an email. We will happily give them credit, use the courtesy, of course, but we want to see what's going on out there And so if anybody's got any reports of what's going on, that would certainly be helpful. And I've got the storm reports turned on, so we haven't had any storm reports be sent in to the National Weather Service yet. That's kind of the feed that we get, is whatever feed that is received from the National Weather Service. We can then utilize that. But if you guys have photos, please send them to us, because I'll send them over to the Weather Service. We have a great working relationship here at the news station with the Weather Service, and be glad to help them out. But again, 9:45, that's when the tornado warning is set to expire, so we've got about another 25 minutes or so of this. And the area of interest just to the west of Raynell, let's look at the latest on the velocity product. There it is. It's pretty broad-looking rotation here at this point, but that is just west of downtown. So let's have some fun, if you will, and just zoom right in on downtown. So again, you got Lily Park, of course, farther down to the south and west. This is some broad stuff showing up in Raynell. So if you're watching this and you're concerned in Raynell, there is almost certainly not a tornado on the ground with this storm. There is some mid-level rotation, though, occurring. So again, when we're talking about the potential for looking and finding a tornado on radar, right, we're looking for the areas. Goodness gracious. Is that thing going to work? There we go. We're going to have the areas in green moving toward the radar. So that's particles by the radar that are moving toward the Blacksburg radar. So they're moving kind of this way. And then we have the red, which indicates the particles moving away from the radar. So that is like this. And where these values kind of start to come together, that's where you have your area of rotation. Now, when you have a really strong area of rotation, you would have very strong winds moving in one direction and very strong winds moving in another direction. We do not have that here. This is some very broad stuff that is taking place. But again, that's basically sitting right over Raynell at this point. So again, you want to make sure that you stay in your safe spot while this is moving overhead, right? Because things can still change very quickly. This is just the data that we're looking at here at the present moment. And again, not looking too bad at all. There we go. Starting to think I'm going to have to restart this thing. But anyway, we look at the radar, and again, there is the purple. That might indicate a little bit of hail trying to mix in with this storm as it does continue to scoot over Raynell. We go a little farther down to the south toward Farmdale, toward Bellwood, and again, this is some heavy rain that continues to move through, but the overall presentation of this storm is looking a bit more on the disorganized side. So we zoom back out and we take a look, and perhaps the greater concern, at least over the next half hour to 45 minutes, is this heavy rainfall that is moving over central parts of Fayette County, because again, these are areas that have already picked up a couple of inches of rain over the last few hours. So as we zoom back into parts of Fayette County, Fayetteville, for example, is like we were looking at a few minutes ago, has already picked up some pretty impressive rainfall amounts here over the last couple of hours. And we put that, we can take a look at that and look at the latest with some of these totals. And yeah, so we're starting to get in excess of 2 inches of rain over the last 3 hours. That's certainly enough to cause some street issues with flooding, especially in poor drainage spots. This is not going to cause the widespread flooding that we had farther up to the north in parts of Upshur County and places like that. And you're unfortunately probably going to be hearing about that as we head toward tomorrow as more information comes out, because that was likely some catastrophic flooding that occurred up toward Buchanan and Weston here late this afternoon and into the early evening hours. But this is still enough to fill some creek banks up, some low-lying issues certainly possible. And again, you see like Clifftop, for example, looking at around 2 inches of rain indicated by the yellow. We still have rain that's falling. So we go back to the radar. They've still got another round of rain coming in. So another ½ inch to an inch is certainly possible before this has a chance to finally move its way out of the area. But again, moving back into the area of interest in terms of the risk for tornadic thunderstorm activity, this thing is looking more and more disorganized by the minute. This tornado warning, the storm is now east of Raynell. So Raynell, you're fine. As far as the threat for tornadoes is concerned. It is now scooting off to the east. So now we're talking about areas like Rupert that would be under the latest threat for this as far as the next town over. We look at the velocity. There it is. Again, a broad-looking area that we're talking about. I'm going to zoom back in here for a bit. if I can. Man, oh man. There we go. So there's Rupert right there. There's the area of interest, like we've been talking about, the closest area where the green and the red particles are. So right in here, that's the area of concern. This is broad rotation. If I was a betting man, there's definitely no tornado on the ground with this at the moment as it continues to scoot to the east. But this is still some mid-level rotation, and it needs to be respected, and that's why we have the tornado warning that has been issued here as a result. So we'll check back in on that here in a moment. But again, I want to kind of resurface and go back out to the broader perspective, which has been this volatile area of low pressure up to our north, this cold front that continues to cross. Brief, we could switch back to links too. That would be awesome. There we go. And we have this front that continues to work its way toward our region. Notice the thunderstorms that have popped up across parts of Tennessee here over the last hour or so. Anytime you've got a setup like this, you could still see severe weather until this front crosses. So again, that means your meteorologists are probably going to be staying up a little late here tonight past our bedtimes. But hey, that's part of how it goes sometimes. And we've had a lot of severe weather, especially across northern parts of West Virginia here today. See all that red that occurred and kind of rained over the same areas. That's why we had that catastrophic flooding up in parts of Upshur County, Lewis County, into Randolph County, kind of paralleling US 33 out that way. But again, here at home, these storms, this is kind of the last big storm that we've got left. We'll watch these showers that are on the other side of our front, although these are having a hard time holding together, and hopefully they will continue to have a hard time holding together as they work their way into our region. We had an enhanced risk for our northern counties. Again, everything's been dropped to a slight risk, so that is certainly some good news here, but it's still a level 2 risk that we are looking at in our neck of the woods. So those scattered showers and thunderstorms continue to be to have the potential of producing severe weather, though not in a widespread stance here. So again, it's that 2% risk for tornado within 25 miles of a single point. If we could, let's go ahead and switch back over to Links 1 and let's get the latest here. So again, tornado warning continuing. Basically right over Rupert at this point. So Raynell, actually the tornado warning literally has been allowed to expire in Raynell. I was going to tell you were clear anyway, but it's now a very small polygon once again that we're looking at. At this point, unless we see some big time strengthening with this storm, I'd be surprised if we see this tornado warning get extended. I would. But again, we're going to continue to respect the warning until it's been allowed to expire, whether that's at 9:45 or a little early. And so again, this broad rotation currently sitting over the Rupert area. It is working its way off to the east toward Rockcliffe. Cornstalk, by the way, is over here toward Williamsburg. You guys are not in the warning. Close enough to where I'd probably keep an eye on this to see what it's going to do over the next half hour or so. But at this point, the structure of this thunderstorm is not looking nearly as impressive. We'll look at some of the different products here. There's the radar. So some very heavy rain occurring, and we'll put this into motion. There we go. This storm kind of working its way off to the east, weakening as it does so. How do we know that it's weakening? The structure of the storm does not look as organized. It looks a little messier. It looks like the convection is kind of struggling to stay together. And also just the straight up decibels, the bright colors that you see, the purples, those are starting to go away as well. So that kind of tells us that the height of this storm, some of the characteristics that make this storm severe just are not quite as prevalent as what it was a few minutes ago. And also, the storm might try to cycle once again, but it has really struggled to do so over the last half hour or so here across parts of Greenbrier County. But again, the tornado warning, that does continue until 9:45. And again, some broad rotation still occurring near the Rupert area, just due east of Rupert, but for the most part, very broad indeed. Grabbing a quick drink of water. Sorry about that. Wanted to make sure my voice didn't crack. But anyway, this storm is showing signs of weakening, but these storms also have had a lot of cycling going on. So we go farther back up to the north and west, and we've got another storm that we can at least keep an eye on here momentarily, and that is to the east of Oak Hill toward Bury Mountain. This is kind of moving over the same areas of the last storm now at this point. So You would think, right, a storm moving right behind another storm, it would weaken and fall apart. But again, the wind energy is what these storms are thriving on, right? If the wind energy wasn't here, these storms would not be persisting at all. But it turns out that it just doesn't take much when we have energy of this kind of magnitude with the wind shear that's in place. Let's pause this and take a look and see if we have any kind of rotation going on with this particular cell. And let's see, we do not. So not much going on with this guy. No complaints with that, that's for sure. So really it's just still just the one storm that we've got to look at farther off to the east. And I will say, at least for the moment, we're looking okay. That is some broad rotation still on the east side of Rupert. So we zoom in here across the Rupert area. So right there along Route 60, that's what's really awesome about some of our in-house products. We are able to zoom in right on the city. So, of course, Rupert right there, you've got Clay Street. There is the rotation, which is continuing to scoot to the east toward now Shawver's Crossing. So you're getting out toward Crawley down to the south, kind of where US 60 kind of makes that sharp turn. That's about where the rotation is here at this point. But what's the thing that you're noticing here about this velocity that is not as impressive as what it was earlier? These values are super weak. I mean, this is maybe 10 miles per hour moving one way, 10 miles per hour moving another way. That's not going to create a tornado. So that is great to see here for the time being. But this is also an area that's seeing some very heavy rainfall. And at least temporarily, that's kind of the bigger threat that we are looking at here right now. I want to zoom back out because I've got to reset from time to time. We do have flash flood warnings that continue across central portions of Fayette County. Those go until around 11:30 here this evening. And again, we do have that tornado warning that continues until 9:45 for western parts of Greenbrier County. We also, moving farther up to the north, we have that flash flood emergency. That includes extreme western Randolph County, Upshur County, kind of central portions of Upshur County, including the Buchanan area, and then eastern parts of Lewis County. That is where we had as much as 4 to 6 inches of rain occur in about 3 hours in those spots. And that's unfortunately going to be a spot where a lot of flooding, hopefully not too much in the way of injuries, takes place. But I do fear that we've had some injuries as a result of some of that flooding. That was likely some violent flooding that took place in that relatively small area there in north central portions of West Virginia. We're seeing rain in Greenbrier and Fayette counties, but thankfully this is all moving. We do have some back building trying to take place. I'm actually going to switch back to the Charleston radar for a moment and notice that some back building is trying to take place. What do I mean by that? We have storms that are trying to develop and follow previous storms that have worked their way through. So again, there's that one cell kind of moving in behind the tornado-warned cell that's over in the Rupert area. And these just kind of following one after another. I'm switching back over to the Blacksburg radar since that's the closer radar. And again, the nice thing about this at this point is if you were looking at just the radar presentation of this, it's pretty hard to tell where there might be a tornado. Now, it's going to turn out to be right in this area because we've been tracking this for the last half hour or so. But the reality of this is that for the time being, this velocity is not looking impressive at all. So this should be allowed to expire, and I would not expect a new warning, at least for now, to be issued unless we see some strengthening of the rotation to take place. That is a flood advisory that has just been posted by the National Weather Service in Blacksburg. So they're recognizing that these storms are kind of moving over the same areas at this point. And so they've gone ahead and been like, hey, watch out for the potential for some flooding to take place in these areas. So a quick inch or two, like what we're seeing across portions of Fayette County, is certainly going to be possible here as this continues to scoot off to the east. And these storms move over the same area. So that includes areas north of Lewisburg. So basically, if you're in Ronceverte, if you're in Lewisburg, if you're in White Sulphur Springs, you're like, what is going on? It's quiet here. You don't have to go far away, though, to see the activity. In fact, you just get up toward Frankfort and Falling Spring. That's where the heavy rainfall is. And then farther back to the west of that, toward Rupert, that's where we've had the tornado warning, which, again, has been a storm that has traveled quite a ways from Boone County and Kanawha County through Fayette County and now into western portions of Greenbrier County. So again, has had a history of producing a lot of rotation. We have not gotten any confirmations of tornadoes or anything like that. Of course, if we do, we would be the first to tell you if we could. We'd get that information because it would pop right up here on the screen. But we have not gotten anything like that here at this juncture, which is certainly nice to see. But regardless, we still have some rotation that is occurring this evening. And trust me, I know there's some folks that probably want to watch their broadcast. I was in the middle of eating a can of Chef Boyardee mini raviolis, right? You just got to do what you got to do. But we do have these storms that continue to push their way to the east. This tornado warning is set to expire in a few minutes anyway. So as long as that trend of weakening continues, it should be allowed to expire at 9:45, and then we'll be able to return back. But again, some broad rotation still occurring east of Raynell. If you are now in Raynell, if you are in Rupert, you are in the clear. This storm is now east of you, even in Rupert. As we zoom back in here for a bit, we look Rupert, of course, being right here, there along the main highway. And then now the area of rotation kind of entering the easternmost portion of the tornado warning. So this is down toward around the Crawley, Kiefer. Man, these are some really small towns that we're talking about. These probably got about 10 people in them. Clintonville, it's got a little more. That's farther down to the south and east. This is staying up to your north, though, in Clintonville, so you don't have to worry about that. Got a good viewer in Cornstalk. She's probably all excited that this storm is probably approaching. Some people like storms. Some people don't like storms. I personally like forecasting, but I don't like seeing them. Right? We don't need to have any damage or anything like that here in our region. But, again, the area of interest is right in here. And what we'll do is pop the radar back up if I can. There we go. And the one thing we'll have to watch here, at least for a few more minutes, while we see what the National Weather Service is going to do. Again, we see that appendage, and that always tells us that the storm is trying to cycle. I mean, it's trying its darndest to try to circle back around and create that area of rotation, which would be due north of Clintonville. So the area of greatest interest as far as the rotation is concerned is Otter Creek. We can zoom right in on these towns, or on these roads. So, Gray Gable Road, that's where the rotation is. We get a little farther off to the east toward Meadow Mountain, and that's going to be another area that we see that rotation taking place. Basically, right under the appendage. So the appendage is back here across parts of US 60, and we put the rotation back up, and there it is, just like we were talking about, right in here. Now, we can actually sample these and tell you how strong the rotation is, right? So this one, for example, we're moving 29 miles per hour toward the radar. So the radar, of course, being down toward Blacksburg. So this is kind of more of a northwest to southeast trajectory, right? And then the wind moving the opposite way is moving at 12 miles an hour. That's not really going to cause any tornadic activity with wind speeds that are that slow. So that is a good sign here as this continues to work its way off to the east. But we have had a lot of thunderstorms this afternoon that have exhibited much stronger rotations. Even the storms that we had in Fayette County back when this was to the west of Oak Hill, when this particular cell was there, those storms were at that point, that supercell, the same one, was showing some much stronger winds. And so that was a much bigger problem as it was working its way in through portions of Fayette County. Want to zoom back out. Let's see if we've got any other storms that have popped up, mainly just those same two cells. So this one has not really been showing any signs of strengthening, but just in that last frame, let's zoom in on that. These same areas now starting to see some other development. So that's another little cell that just in the last few minutes has popped up and is beginning to strengthen over the Boomer and Alloy areas there towards Smithers and western portions of Fayette County. That was part of the same area that had the tornado warning there a little bit ago. That has since scooted off to the south and east into portions of Greenbrier County. We go a little farther to the east. Fayetteville had those downpours. Thankfully, they have moved out. It's raining cats and dogs there at Kennard. They're at the put-out for the rafters. Down toward Clifftop there at the state park there at Babcock. It is really raining hard once again, raining cats and dogs, and those downpours continuing to scoot down to the south and to the east. So more rain coming, for example, to Raynell. And this would eventually probably try to scoot toward Lewisburg if it can hold itself together as far as the heavy downpours are concerned. But right now, the conveyor belt of rain continuing to stay up to the north toward Cornstalk, toward Falling Spring. And some of these rainfall totals have become quite impressive, and that's why that flood advisory just got added for Greenbrier County. Where you see the light green, that's a quick ½ inch to 1 inch of rain that we've picked up. And where you've seen the yellows, which is starting to expand, that's where we've picked up 2+ inches of rain. And so that's where we really start to see that issue with the flash flooding taking place once you get north of about 2 inches of rain in those spots. And that's occurring in parts of Fayette County. That's why that flash flood warning does go until 11:30 here this evening. So as far as the active alerts that we've got right now, we do have the flash flood warning for Fayette. That also includes another flash flood warning for western portions of Fayette. We have the tornado warning, which is set to expire here in a couple of minutes. No signs of that really needing to be reissued, at least in my book at this point. And then we also have the severe thunderstorm warning, and that continues a little bit later. That goes a little bit farther to the east, including the Cornstalk area. And so as a result, that severe thunderstorm warning goes until 10:15 here this evening. So again, that kind of encompasses more of the coverage of that thunderstorm as it does push to the east. The interesting thing is we kind of have two different areas now where the storm is trying to rotate, both of them not being overly impressive or successful in doing so. We're not complaining by that, but that original area that was rotating near Crawley, that is weakened, and that original area near Rainelle that was rotating has also kind of weakened. So we kind of just have one storm that's kind of shredding itself apart here as it continues to scoot east through Cornstalk, for example. And so again, I bet the velocity product would represent that. You see the rotation through Crawley kind of going away. You see the rotation back toward Rainelle also going away. So this storm is now not really rotating much at all, at least for the time being, as it does push toward now Trout, toward Cordova, eventually toward Falling Spring and Cornstalk. Farther down to the south, Lewisburg, you are in the clear. Roncevert, you are in the clear. Anthony, you are in pretty good shape. This storm is going to stay up to your north, but you may have more downpours that will work your way toward the region here as we head toward the next hour or so. And then Mapledale, kind of the same song and dance. I always think of Mapledale there along Route 92 as the spot where you lose cell service when you're driving. Because once you get north of Mapledale, there is no cell service, at least if you're an AT&T customer. But again, the area of interest down to the south and west toward Cornstalk, well, let's look at that. That last little frame there, did you see that? We have a little spike there. So let's see if that's an anomaly in the radar presentation or if we have something new that's trying to develop. So that's right down to the south and west of Cornstalk. What do we got going on right there? That, to me, doesn't look like anything too concerning. But we'll zoom back in here for a moment. So you got Alta right there, and then Clintonville. So you guys are in the clear, but there's Cornstalk. And let's look at that area of that rotation right there. So we'll see what is happening with this here momentarily. And as soon as that happens, I believe the tornado warning just expired. I think they allowed it to expire just a moment ago. But let's let this scan go through before we return back to your normally scheduled broadcast. Again, seeing a little bit of an uptick in some of the rotation there south and west of Cornstalk. This may have been a little blurred, though, by the radar. Sometimes that does happen, where sometimes some false detections take place. The radars aren't perfect after all, but down to the south and west of Cornstalk, down to the south and west of Fort Donnelly, it was this particular spot where perhaps there was a little bit of an uptick there in the last detection that took place. So that's north of Hughart. There we go, near Hartstook Road, and that continues to scoot to the east. But we look at the winds associated with that, and as we do so, you will see that these values still not anything too crazy. So 30 miles per hour one way, and it looks like about 10 miles per hour on the other side. So not looking like anything too significant that is taking place here as this continues to scoot to the east. But in the meantime, the tornado warning has been allowed to expire. So with that being said, even though we're only about 15 minutes or so from the newscast over on Fox at 10 o'clock, we're going to go ahead and return back to your regularly scheduled broadcast. As always, though, if we have any more tornado warnings, we'll be sure to cut in and keep you updated on what's going on This has been a tornado warning for portions of Greenbrier County that has since been allowed to expire. You know what? Actually, let's stay on here for just a moment. I apologize, guys. This is a much stronger area of rotation that we are seeing here. This is a big-time rotation that just came in. So we've got an absolute couplet that's starting to develop here. So let's stay on here for a little while longer. We do not have a tornado warning on this just yet, but let's keep an eye on this here for another couple of scans because this is showing a lot of signs of strengthening here for the time being. So this is right along Route 9. And again, we were about ready to return to broadcast, but this is really starting to strengthen once again. South and west of Fort Donnelly. This is south and west of Cornstalk. So Cornstalk right here, Route 9 farther down to the south. And this is a little area of concern here for the time being. Let's look at the radar presentation. Yeah, there's definitely something going on here where this thing is trying to wrap here temporarily. So we're going to stay on here for a little while longer. I want to zoom back out for just a moment, though, if I can. And let's take a look at the broader scheme, kind of zoom back in a little bit in these areas. And I tell you what, the 10 o'clock newscast, whenever that happens, yep, so there's that new tornado warning that we were just talking about. So we have a new tornado warning. This goes until 10:15. So we're going to be cutting into our Fox broadcast here as a result of this tornado warning. New tornado warning that has been issued for central parts of Greenbrier County. Right as we were about to head off air, we got that new scan that came in, and just like that, we've got another area of rotation that is of concern. Now, before we really dive into this storm, if you're in Raynell, you're in the clear. If you are in Rupert, you're in the clear. This storm is now well off to your east. This is kind of paralleling the I-64 Route 60 corridors north of Lewisburg. If you're in Lewisburg, you are clear from this. You don't have to worry about this. If you're in White Sulphur Springs, you are clear from this. You do not have to worry about this. But near Alta, just north of Alta, that is what we're concerned about. And I got to say, looking at this little indention that we've got, this is the strongest signature that we have had so far this evening. So we popped the velocity product back up. This is a sharper looking velocity return than we've had here in quite a bit. So that's why that tornado warning has been issued. So better luck next time if you were wanting to watch the show there on Fox before 10 o'clock. I hate to bust through, but we do have some serious weather that is scooting through portions of the region. If you are in Frankfort, I would definitely be getting into your safe spot here at this point. So this storm is definitely working toward you. Again, we don't have anything on the ground, folks, as far as what's being confirmed. We're looking at everything that is radar indicated. But again, like we've been talking about now for about the last hour or so, well, really about the last hour and a half off and on, we have a tightening area of rotation that is occurring to the north and to the east of Alta. And so with that being said, we do have the concern here that we may have a brief spin-up tornado taking place here south and east of Cornstalk. This is a little bit of a stronger velocity return that we've got showing up than when we had here recently. And this is continuing to scoot off to the north and east. Oh yeah, look at this. Yeah, this is a much stronger looking rotation. Let's zoom in on this. This is quite an area of concern down to the south and east of Cornstalk. So Cornstalk is right about where this banner is. This is a pretty decent little return showing up, a little couplet is what we like to call it in the weather world. And we can sample this, and when we sample this, we're looking at how strong these winds are moving up against each other. So, for example, well, I hit that the wrong spot. There we go. So that's a 46 mile per hour wind of particles that's moving one way, and then you've got another one that's 19 the other. So we've got a combined 65 miles per hour of rotation that is occurring with this storm right now in this supercell in Greenbrier County. And that is strong enough to where we could have something on the ground with this. It's not a guarantee by any stretch, but this is definitely a little bit of a stronger return for sure than we've had over the last 20 to 25 minutes. And so that's why this tornado warning is taking place and has been issued here by the National Weather Service there in Blacksburg. So we go to the radar, and I always call these donut holes in the radar presentation. And anytime you've got a donut hole showing up like this, there's likely at least some mid-level rotation that's occurring with this storm. So that's what we're seeing. So this is down to the south of Williamsburg. If you're in Williamsburg, you're totally fine, right? And Cornstalk is the same way. Cornstalk is in the clear of this. This is going to be kind of moving closer eventually toward the Brantville area, a very small community there farther off to the east. So we look downstream. There is Brantville. There's the Seneca Trail. There's Frankfort, and I think Frankfort would be one of those towns, that's a little bit of a bigger community, right, where we would want to be thinking about where to head to our safe spot because this storm is slowly working its way toward you. But we head back toward where the actual storm is itself, which again is where this little donut punch is, this little donut hole, and we show the rotation once again, and it looks like, at least for the time being, it's trying to cycle itself back out. So again, these storms kind of cycle, they strengthen, they weaken. They strengthen, they weaken. They strengthen, they weaken. We call that cycling. And so as we put the motion on this, watch how this thing kind of re-strengthens for a bit and then weakens. So big time strength there when it crossed Route 9. That was a strong return that was over Route 9 there south of Cornstalk a little bit ago. I'd be interested to see if there's some trees that came down along Route 9 in this area. That's probably the area that has seen some tree damage, perhaps, as it's worked its way to the east. And this was still rotating quite a bit as it crossed Route 60-28. I don't know the name of that one. Shame on me, right? But now, as this storm is continuing to scoot east, it is cycling back out. So as this continues to work toward Frankfort, at least for the time being, Frankfort being right here, this storm is showing a lot of signs of weakening. We'll see if it cycles again, though. That is a possibility that we could be looking at. But for the time being, the storm is showing some signs of weakening. So we'll zoom back out here for a bit. So there's the tornado warning. And again, that goes until 10:15. That's the new warning that we've got that's been issued. No other storms that are warned in any regard. We do have, of course, those flash flood warnings we were talking about earlier in portions of Fayette County, western portions of Fayette County as well. Flood advisory for the northern half, essentially, of Greenbrier County. And then, of course, the tornado warning, which you can literally see the rotation right there, kind of scooting through eastern portions of Greenbrier County, north of the Lewisburg area. So let's zoom back in somewhat so we can kind of show the entire county and show you where this is occurring. So, again, Roncevert, you're in good shape, no problems. You're down toward Alderson, no problems, you're in good shape. You're in White Sulphur Springs, Lewisburg, all those spots, no problems. It's once you get a little farther up to the north here that we start to see those issues with the potential for a tornado. And that is about to cross Frankfort here as we speak. So this will be crossing 219 in about 2 minutes or so. And again, these storms continuing to race to the east. So this is going to be probably out of here before 10:15 at the rate we're going. We're at about, what, 9:53-ish, 9:55, 9:56, something like that here right now. And this storm continuing to scoot off to the east at a rather quick rate at about 40 miles per hour. I mean, since we've been on, off and on here around 8:30, 8:45 this evening, this was all the way in Kanawha County to give you an idea of where the storm was. If we could, Bree, let's switch back over to Links 2 and show that wider perspective once again. Can we kind of await for this front to finally cross our region? Once the front crosses, the severe weather threat is zilcho. But before the front crosses, there's still lots of wind energy upstairs. The thing that's kind of interesting that kind of works opposite of how our minds work, right? I want you to think here for a second. When we think of severe weather in West Virginia, what is the time of the day that we usually think about severe weather? It's usually like in the early to mid-afternoon, right? Maybe into the early evening hours, like late afternoon, something like that. The wind energy in our atmosphere is actually stronger right after dark, right during this time frame. Usually we see what we call these low-level jets set up. We have one that's set up right now. And basically we see these belts of stronger winds take place as a result of some of the compression, things like that, that occur during the afternoon with these scattered showers and thunderstorms, the synoptic setups that are at play. Basically all that to say the wind energy is actually higher right now than it was earlier this afternoon. So despite the rain that we've had over the last couple of hours here in our region, despite the fact that we have had some clouds throughout much of the day that has kind of hindered the instability at stake with these storms, The wind energy is basically canceling all that out, and that's why we continue to see the risk for severe weather here in our region. So again, we have dropped, I haven't had a chance, obviously, because I've been standing here the entire time, but we had the Storm Prediction Center drop us to a level 2 risk for severe weather. So that is still a situation where we're talking about some decent storms, right? We could still have a few scattered strong to severe storms that take place here as a result of the setup that we have at play here in our region. 2% risk of seeing a tornado, right? That's not the probability of seeing a tornado in your town. This means it is a 2% risk of seeing a tornado within 25 miles of a single point. So let's say you're in Union, right? And you're under this threat. You have a 2% risk of seeing a tornado within a 25-mile radius of you. Pretty low threat, but we do have tornado warnings that are occurring right now. Wind threat is at 10%, so that has dropped as well. Hail threat is pretty much nada, so no issues here with the hail. We weren't too concerned about that anyway. These scattered showers and thunderstorms continuing to work their way down to the south and east here as we head through this evening. So likely some other developments possible here before this is all said and done. Then the front itself will cross as we head toward dawn. We'll have some showers around during the morning hours, and then once we get beyond that time frame, we'll start to see some improvements taking place here as we head into the afternoon. I think Wednesday afternoon is not going to be too bad here in our region. We'll have some clouds hanging tough during the first half of the day with gradual clearing, some sunshine returning. And the big story will be the temperature drop, lower humidity values, dew point values down into the 50s, which we haven't experienced in quite some time. And then on top of that, we will have temperatures down into the 70s. So again, before we switch back over to look at the radar, let's talk again about where we should be if we have this tornado warning. Because again, I go to lots of school visits. I've actually got a school visit on Wednesday and on Friday this week. And anytime I go and do these school visits, we always talk about where we should go when we have a tornado warning issue. You go to the basement first. But if you don't have a basement, you want to go to the place in your house that has A, very small or no windows, and B, has the most number of walls between yourself and outside. Usually that's in the middle of your house, and usually that would be like a bathroom or a closet, something like that, right? So again, I don't have a basement, so I always have to think about this for myself, but if you've got a basement, that's usually the place to go. And if you happen to be, it seems like I always have one or two school visitors, school kiddos that tell me they have a tornado shelter down like in a cellar or something. I'm like, man, get her done. That's awesome. But I do not have one of those. So just bear that in mind here, that that's where you would want to be, right? At the end of the day, the reason that we cut into these broadcasts is to try to protect you guys, prevent any kind of injury from occurring with these storms, if at all possible. We still have some power outages, 1,500 of them now, so that number continues to climb slowly in Fayette County. We have 8% of customers, so about 1 out of 12 customers without power in Fayette County. When we talk about wind shear, what do we mean by that? The wind speed and direction is different in the upper levels of our atmosphere than at the surface. In today's example, the wind speed is much stronger and it is in a different direction than what it is here where we're standing. So that creates naturally some horizontal rotation. That already has rotation occurring in the atmosphere, but we still need some kind of mechanism to switch this horizontal rotation into a vertical rotation that can create a tornado. That's where the thunderstorm comes in. So when the thunderstorm forms, it literally tilts that rotation via the updraft, right? And then boom, we start seeing tornado activity occur as a result. And that is the setup that we're looking at today. So you can see this happen. You can also see microbursts, downbursts occur. And so that's usually the more common type of scenario that we see. But in today's tornado warnings that we've had, of course, this has been the setup that we've been looking at. But to emphasize, we have not had any tornadoes reported on the ground. This has all been radar indicated. But some of this rotation that we have been seeing on radar has been rather impressive. Let's switch back over to Lynx 1 if we could, Bree, and take a look at the latest with what's going on our Storm Tracker 59 HD Dual Live Doppler radar. So again, there is our tornado warning, and that continues until 10:15. At the moment, this is weakening quite a bit, so we love to see that. But just when we thought we were about to return to our normally scheduled broadcast, we had a very strong return kicked back in west of Frankfurt. So let's zoom back in here on what's going on here as far as what's happening in Fayette County. We do have those storms. It would probably help if I switch my remote. There we go. We still have that storm that's sitting now just due east of Frankfort. So we zoom in and take a look at what's going on. And again, we're keeping an eye on the areas of the green that is moving toward the radar and the red that's moving away from the radar. The tight rotation that we had back to the west of Frankfort and to the south and east of Cornstalk, that is gone. And for the time being, we have some very broad rotation. So this is not tornado warning worthy here at this point. Now, we'll see if this recycles over the next handful of minutes before this tornado warning is allowed to expire. But this is continuing to show signs of weakening. Let's show the radar product back up here, and as we do, let's see what that presentation looks like. And again, at the moment, not really seeing anything too crazy. Perhaps trying to see another appendage trying to develop here south of Frankfort. So we'll watch that here. But we're not seeing the donut hole that we had farther back to the west, south, and east of Cornstalk. That, again, if I was a person that liked weather, that lived in the Cornstalk area, after the storm rolls through and we start to see things quiet down, I would definitely be driving down Route 9 tomorrow to see if there were some trees down, because I have a feeling there probably were in that spot. But right now, the storm continuing to scoot east. So Cornstalk is in the clear. Sunlight is in the clear, right? Even Frankfort itself, this storm is going to be east of you here in a minute or two, so you'll be all right here in another minute or so. However, if you're in Anthony, right, you're going to want to keep an eye on this for a few more minutes. It's close to you. So there's Anthony. Let's center the radar back up here for a bit. Let's pause things so that we can get another look at this. There's the storm back to the west. So here's the area of concern that we're looking at, which is just to the west of Anthony. There's Spring Creek. Spring Creek's getting dumped on with rain, but it's not anything that we're having to deal with that's on the tornadic front. Again, if you're tuning in here, of course, we're now into the 10 o'clock newscast on Fox. And if you're tuning in, we are breaking in because we have a tornado warning that got issued for Greenbrier County. This has been part of a supercell that has been showing signs of rotation for about 2 hours now, and it continues to scoot to the east. But if you're watching in Lewisburg way down here, you're fine. So Lewisburg is here, way to the south of this storm. If you're in Caldwell, you're in good shape. Weisulphur Springs, also in good shape. So we don't have to worry about the storms, at least with this storm, up in those portions of Greenbrier County. And that includes down toward Fairley at the State Fairgrounds. Nothing like that. It's farther up to the north here where we're looking at this storm. So this is starting to get close to the Virginia border. I love to talk about Neola. So Neola is along Route 92. And I talk about Neola because it's my favorite place to go to for the fall colors along Route 92 come early to mid-October. And so that is right near the Virginia border. So that kind of gives you an idea. There's the border right here. So we're probably about another 15 or 20 minutes alone from this storm being out of the state. But in the meantime, we continue to watch this. And Anthony is kind of sitting right on the periphery of the storm itself. So we continue to go back and forth looking at the velocity product. So that velocity signature is starting to scoot a little north and east. And is, again, not really looking overly impressive here at the moment. We have the weak winds that are scooting toward the radar, so kind of scooting like this. We have some stronger winds that are moving away from the radar up to the north and west. So that creates that weak area of rotation to the north and east of Anthony at this juncture. So we have something that looks kind of like this. But this is very broad and weak. This is not like what we had down to the south and east of Cornstalk here just a short while ago. But if you're in Blue Bend, get into your safe spot for sure. We're getting to the eastern end. Look at that. We have a new tornado warning that has been issued. This goes to the state border. So we're going to be talking about this for a little while longer. The National Weather Service likely seeing this signature and probably playing it safe more than anything else, realizing that this storm has had a history of cycling over and over again. And as a result, we do have a new tornado warning. Let's see what time that goes off. If I can get that turned off. That goes until... sometimes we got to have, there we go, 10:30. So the new tornado warning goes until 10:30. So we're going to be staying on this, talking about this storm, continuing to track it for you as it scoots off to the north and east. So again, this does include Greenbrier County. You do not have to worry if you're in Lewisburg and Weisulphur Springs still. This is not moving toward you. This is moving basically all the way up through areas of Route 92. So if you've got any friends that live in Trainer, over toward Neola, this is some pretty rural farmland country out this way, out toward Alvin, And again, the only thing that's kind of a bummer is once you get north of Mapledale, you don't have any cell service. So there's no cell service out in these spots. But yes, that signature is starting to look a little more organized than it was a few moments ago. So we're seeing some cycling taking place. The Virginia border is right here. So this goes all the way about to the Virginia border or so. And that includes, let's see how far up to the north. Not quite to Trainer, but close enough for government work if you ask me. So basically areas along Route 92 in most of Greenbrier County need to be cautious. And yes, this is starting to strengthen once again. So this is why the National Weather Service has issued that tornado warning. We're starting to see some stronger returns moving toward the radar. We're starting to see some stronger returns moving away from the radar. So again, we use our drawing tool and we draw the area here of interest. It is right there near Blue Bend. That's the area that we're looking at here as far as that potential for a spin-up tornado. So that is kind of scooting more to the north and east here at the moment. So kind of a close call there for the Alvin community. But kind of moving between Alvin and Neola by all likelihood here over the next 10 to 15 minutes. So this is a new tornado warning that goes until 10:30. I kind of like to use that 2D view a little bit better. I think that makes it a little easier to view what we've got going on. But when this was over the Anthony area, remember that these values were much weaker than what we're looking at here right now. Let's switch back. We'll switch to the radar product, the actual precipitation, see what we've got looking. And yeah, not really looking at much in the way of structure with this, like what we had earlier. Perhaps a little bit of a donut hole trying to show up there near Blue Bend with some weakening values. But in general, this is not looking quite as impressive. Keep in mind, though, that this radar down in Blacksburg is a good 75, probably 80 miles or so to the south of where this is. So the radar scans at a small angle, right? Because if it scanned flat, it would run into a mountain. But scanning at about a half-degree angle, this turns out to be at about 7,000 or 8,000 feet. So what does this mean? Everything that you see here is what is being detected at 7,000 or 8,000 feet, which means the rotation that we're seeing is also mid-level rotation. We can't see anything that's super close to the ground. So there's enough mid-level rotation to where the National Weather Service folks are like, you know what, this is enough to where we need to issue a warning for this. And so I think that's a good call with that signature there near Blue Bend. So that's the next area and the next community that's being impacted. We'll zoom right back into Blue Bend Road. And that's a pretty impressive little couplet that's getting ready to scoot through that small community. There's probably about 10 people that live in Blue Bend. But you know what? Those 10 people need to be taking cover here at this point because this is a rotating thunderstorm that is moving into your area. Again, if you're in Cornstalk, we were talking about you about 10, 15 minutes ago, you're in the clear. Earlier we were talking about Raynell and Rupert. You don't have anything to worry about with this storm. This is scooting well off to the east. But again, as we sample this and we take a look at some of these wind speeds, this starts to get a little stronger here. So we have a 29 mile per hour wind that's moving toward the radar, and then we have a 57 mile per hour wind that's moving away. So this is a lot of rotation. That's 86 miles per hour of rotating winds that we're looking at here with this storm. So there is certainly the potential that we could have something going on here. Now this is at the mid-levels. This is at about 7,000 or 8,000 feet above the ground because the radar's scanning at an angle. So that might indicate why the winds might be a little stronger just with the height, but that's still a pretty impressive signature that we're looking at here in Greenbrier County at this juncture. Now this continues to scoot east. So of course these values change rather quickly. So now we're going to move to the east of Blue Bend, and what happens? We pretty much lost that signature. So we had a brief period where we had some stronger signatures showing up, and now we've got that's basically a whole lot of nothing showing up, at least with this scan, to the east of Blue Bend for the moment. So perhaps we're seeing another cycling phase with this supercell thunderstorm that then will try to re-strengthen again, and we'll see if it becomes strong enough to become tornado warned. While that happens, let's zoom back out and see what the heck's going on elsewhere at this hour. So we have the tornado warning till 10:30. We've had the heavy rainfall in Fayette and southern portions of Kanawha County, and that has resulted in flash flooding, flash flood warnings occurring. We've had the catastrophic flooding up in parts of north central West Virginia. That's the rare flash flood emergency. That's probably the last thing we ever want to talk about are flash flood emergencies here in West Virginia, but lo and behold, we do have one this evening for our friends up in the Buchanan area. And that's because they picked up about 6 inches of rain in 3 hours today. And that's, for perspective, about a month and a half's worth of rain in 3 hours. That's going to cause problems. And so, unfortunately, I think we're going to be hearing about some injuries and potentially quite a bit of destruction as a result of some of the flooding. Some of the pictures and videos up that way are not good, folks. Here at home, though, again, we had the heavy rain. We'll put the radar back up so we can see where it is raining. And the good thing for Fayette County itself is that heavy rain that was scooting through, it took its time initially, but it really sped up and has moved out of the area. That is some good news because it was looking like we'd have some more impressive rainfall totals than even what we've seen. But still, with that being said, we look at some of these 3-hour rainfall totals, and that we're pushing north of 2 inches in many areas. That does include eastern portions of Raleigh County. Let's take a look at that. Let's pause and zoom back in. And again, I want to give a shout out, by the way, to, again, all our producers and directors for making all this possible here at the news station. Director Bree, I think, has been hanging on doing this for about 2 hours now. So big thank you to that. Blowing up our producer Ben's 10 o'clock newscast with severe weather. That's what we got going on right now. And again, we've been talking about this threat for severe weather for a little while now, and we were hoping we wouldn't have too much of it. But when we do have severe weather, we try to be ready to rock and roll to try to let you guys know what's going on. Area of heaviest rain over the last 3 hours, sitting just to the east, the south and east of Hico. What is that? Right about toward Dane East, for example, and Landisburg. We've picked up 2.5 inches of rain. Now, we haven't had any flooding reports, but 2.5 inches of rain in 3 hours, that's a lot of rain. So we probably got at least some street nuisance flooding going on. Some of those ditches, for example, probably filling up quite a bit in eastern parts of Fayette County, even into the town of Fayetteville itself. 2 inches of rain in town, there's probably at least some nuisance issues going on. And that little stripe of heavy rain continues farther back to the west in the southern parts of Kanawha County. So the heavy rainfall issue has been something that's been going on. But thankfully, again, like we were talking about a moment ago, these storms are working their way east pretty quickly. And so the rainfall totals in Greenbrier County, once you get east of about Rupert, has not been quite as impressive. Of course, the elephant in the room being this small polygon that we have centered right over the Alvin area, which has just shrunk. So the National Weather Service was like, you know what, Neola, you're in the good. No problems up in Neola. So we're in the clear up toward Neola and the bustling metropolis of Sioux in Greenbrier County. You're in good shape. But in Alvin, we do have still that storm, and let's look at the latest with that here with the radar presentation. There is our tornado warning. The interesting thing, again, that we are going to have to continue to keep an eye on is that we do have other supercells that are trying their darndest to form. This thing has been on the struggle bus, though, since it started forming in Fayette County. So it's not severe, but you can see some of the embedded purples. There is perhaps some small hail trying to develop with that. But the tornadic storm is starting to weaken quite a bit. At least it appears so with the radar presentation. Let's zoom back in. Look at Alvin. Again, this is the tornado warning that goes until 10:30. We look at the velocity product once again. This is some very broad rotation that is occurring right over Alvin there along Route 92 at this hour. So this is not anything that's showing any signs of a tornado being on the ground here at this point. There is some weak rotation that is occurring with this storm as it continues to scoot east. You've got Wild Meadow a little farther down to the south, and farther up to the north, there is Neola. Eventually, you get up toward the Allegheny Trail and over toward Trainer. You don't have to worry about this storm that far up to the north. Just this small area in far eastern portions of Greenbrier County. This is basically the last town before you get to the Virginia border, and then from there, you go into the other Virginia, right? The non-best Virginia. But thankfully, this presentation that we're seeing on radar is showing up a little bit on the weaker side, but it is producing some very heavy rainfall once again, perhaps even some small hail there right in the middle of the community there of Alvin as it continues east. Again, if you do have any pictures, if you have any videos, we would love to use those. We will provide credit, so you're good to go there. You can email us, news@wvnstv.com, message us on Facebook. Honest to goodness, whatever's easiest for you, as long as you send it, that's really what counts, because it's one thing for me to be standing up here and talking about what we're seeing on radar, it's a completely different thing to be able to have that ground truth, being able to be like, hey, that is what this person sent. Please don't send us any AI pictures, though. I will scream if you do that. But I'm joking, but please don't send those. We do have that storm, though, continuing to scoot east. I have a feeling this tornado warning is probably going to be allowed to expire a little early. So that's good if you want to know what the headlines are like in the 10 o'clock newscast, because we are probably going to get to that here in a little bit. But we've still got some business to tend to, and that is this storm that's sitting now just to the east of Alvin. So now we've got this little area of rotation, and basically, I think at this point, we'll kind of follow the rotation to the Virginia border. And there it is. This is not super strong, a little stronger than that last presentation that we had. So let's go back and do some sampling and see what we've got. So we've got 22 miles per hour of the particles moving toward the radar down in Blacksburg. And then we've got 49 miles per hour moving away. So that's still 71 miles per hour of rotation that we're looking at here. So this is still a pretty impressive little couplet that is continuing to scoot through far eastern portions of Greenbrier County. So that's enough to where I would still probably want to stay inside if I was near Alvin, if I was anywhere in this tornado warning. That is still enough to be of concern with this kind of couplet that's taking place here. But we put the radar back up, and again, heavy rainfall is occurring with these storms. We have picked up some pretty decent rainfall totals this afternoon. 1 hour rainfall totals, I'm going to zoom back out because we haven't really utilized the 1 hour totals, but you can see the dark green, that stripe where the flash flood warnings and the flood advisory is, and that area of darker green there near Rupert is where we have picked up about 1.5 inches of rain in an hour. So that is certainly enough to have a few lingering effects, whether it's some ditches, perhaps some low-lying flooding issues to take place. And so that's why that flood advisory has been posted. But we go back into the storm itself, and again, the storm itself has become much smaller in size. That's usually a sign of weakening in and of itself. Let's kind of show a wider perspective, and kind of this conglomerate, this mess of convection is starting to fall apart finally as it scoots its way into the Virginia border. So I think folks to the north of Covington probably not going to have to worry about this a whole lot here at this point, but still worth keeping an eye on until that tornado warning is allowed to expire. There is the storm itself, which is literally hugging the Virginia border at this point. So if you are in Falling Spring, you are definitely fine. It's still raining cats and dogs in Falling Spring, but we're not having to worry about any naders or anything like that. If you're in Anthony, you are in the clear now. So areas along the Greenbrier River are fine. It is going to rain some more, so you're going to have to deal with that. Up toward Droop Mountain, also fine. It's just this little area of rotation now and a very small section of Greenbrier County. I mean, the thing is, we probably got about 20 people that live in this little area, but this area doesn't have cell service. And again, we could have a brief spin-up that occurs with this storm as it continues to push to the east. So we've had some periodic intense couplets that have taken place with this storm periodically over the last couple of hours, although this at this point doesn't look overly impressive. Let's take a look at that, zoom in a little bit more, and see what we got. I don't have great eyes to start with. That's why I wear glasses, but we do have this broad area of rotation that is about to push into the Virginia border. So sitting here at about 10:20 or so, we'll see this likely get expired here a little bit early. We've had these scattered showers and thunderstorms as a result of all this activity with this system that has been pushing through. We have this trough that's up to our north that has provided that necessary wind energy for this to occur. And again, these storms have been occurring because of wind energy. It's not because of the humidity. It's not because of the heat. It's not because of the instability that we see at the surface. Sure, these things have certainly helped out at times, but it's after 10 o'clock and we have tornado warnings going on. We don't see that because of instability. We see that because of something else, and in this case, it's because of the wind energy that's been present. We have wind speeds that are 10, 12,000 feet above us that are around 70, 80, 90, 100 miles per hour. So it makes it very easy for storms to start spinning. It really doesn't take much at all. And this is what's left of our little area of rotation. So as soon as this crosses into Virginia here over the next couple minutes, we'll return to the 10 o'clock newscast. As that does that, though, we'll take a look at the radar one more time here, zooming in. That storm is literally in the midst of crossing into Virginia. But let's go ahead and take a look real quick at what's going on elsewhere to make sure we don't have any other activity that's going on. And you can see we do have some rather heavy downpours across portions of Nicholas and Webster counties. Those will continue to scoot to the east. We also have some heavy downpours in portions of Pocahontas County toward Frost and Minnehaha Springs and areas east of 219, so kind of hugging the Virginia border still yet. Those will also work their way out of the region. We're not done with the rain just yet. I want to show the U.S. radar because we do have a weak line of showers and storms that have been trying their darndest to hold together across parts of Ohio. We'll see if that can further develop as we head through later on tonight, but we're not really expecting any severe weather with that. And then, of course, farther down to the south and east, that's where we've had the flash flood emergency. And again, I'm not a negative Nancy, never have been really. I try to be an optimist, but I do have a feeling, unfortunately, that we have had some significant flooding that has occurred in portions of Upshur, western Randolph, eastern portions of Lewis County there in the Mountain State. But again, our interests have been in Greenbrier County over the last 20 to 30 minutes, and we popped the local radar back on and zoom in, and that storm is moving on out of here. So we can finally say adieu to that. And again, that's been a storm that's been causing quite a bit of issues here over the last couple of hours. The area of rotation is now scooting off into Virginia. In fact, it is in Virginia. So with that being said, I feel pretty comfortable in us go ahead and returning to our newscast. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to go ahead and return to our normally scheduled broadcast, which over on Fox is going to be our 10 o'clock newscast. So this has been a look at tornado-warned supercells that have been working their way through portions of our region in Fayette and Greenbrier counties. The threat for now has left. Of course, if we do have more in the way of issues, we'll be sure to pop back in and let you know. But for now, we're going to be returning back to your normally scheduled broadcast, both on CBS and with the newscast over on Fox.